actual location of the amine is different, and I hope to elucidate that for you soon. Okay, so now we're talking about alanine. And alanine can actually move through the blood. So alanine will move through the blood, and it's going to go to the liver. Right? Alanine is going to go to the liver. Now, effectively what the liver is going to do is it's going to reverse this process. It's going to reverse this process of transamination. So right now we have alanine, right? And it's going to reverse the process. So we're going to require an alpha-ketoglutarate, right? Alpha-ketoglutarate. And we're going to get out a glutamate, right? And in the process, we're going to generate pyruvate. So we're going to generate pyruvate. And again, this is catalyzed by an alanine aminotransferase. Okay, so what do we see? Alanine goes from the blood to the liver, and alanine aminotransferase there is going to convert it back to pyruvate. What I want to mention at this point is that the actual transamination that's shown here from alanine to pyruvate, this particular reaction occurs in the cytosol of hepatocytes. Remember that liver cells are also referred to as hepatocytes. Now, in the hepatocytes, the glutamate that's produced in the cytosol through this reaction can enter the mitochondria, and we will discuss the fate of glutamate in a few minutes. But suffice to say, it will react with glutamate dehydrogenase, forming either an NADH or NADPH, and then it will generate alpha-ketoglutarate, which will go into the CCA cycle. Okay, now we have pyruvate in the liver. Now, in order to get glucose back to the skeletal muscle, gluconeogenesis is going to occur. And if you need help with gluconeogenesis, certainly go review the playlist on that. But suffice to say that pyruvate is going to be converted back to glucose. Right? Pyruvate is going to be converted back to glucose. And that process is gluconeogenesis. Right? Remember, in the mitochondria of the hepatocytes, remember that the pyruvate is produced by the transaminase first goes to the mitochondria, and there it's going to react with pyruvate carboxylase. Right? And that's going to form oxaloacetate. And from there, then we can do various things. We can either first convert it from phosphatidylpyruvate by phosphatidylpyruvate carboxykinase, and then transport PEP back out into the cytosol where gluconeogenesis occurs. Or we can take oxaloacetate, react with malate dehydrogenase in the mitochondria to get malate, transport malate across the membrane, right? And then we can use cytosolic malate dehydrogenase to convert it back to oxaloacetate, and then we can use cytosolic phosphatidylpyruvate carboxykinase to PEP, and then we can use gluconeogenesis on that. And if you recall from the previous videos on the aspartate arsenic substrate shunt, we found a third way to do this. We can essentially convert oxaloacetate into aspartate, and that's done by aspartate aminotransferase, and then we can transport aspartate to the mitochondria, and then use cytosolic aspartate aminotransferase to get it back to oxaloacetate, and then we can do gluconeogenesis. But the whole point to say this is that this process right here is going to be gluconeogenesis, and we're going to end up getting glucose back. Now, the glucose that is produced is going to leave the cytosol of the hepatocyte, and it's going to re-enter the bloodstream. So that glucose is going to re-enter the bloodstream, and it's going to go back to the skeletal muscle, right? So now we're back on the skeletal muscle side, and the glucose phosphate is going to be converted back into pyruvate. And what's the process that does that? Well, that's the process of glycolysis, right? That's the process of glycolysis. And one of the things that you should realize about muscles that are actively contracting anaerobically is they're largely running on glycolysis. And if you have a tissue like a skeletal muscle that's actively running on glycolysis, you must constantly feed it glucose, right? But if you're not getting glucose from the diet, in other words, you're doing amino acid metabolism, you're not getting glucose from the diet, so you have to get it from somewhere. So one of the ways that you supply the skeletal muscle glucose is by doing this glucose-alanine cycle, okay? That's very important to understand. If you're not getting glucose from the diet, you have to get it from somewhere. It's done through this cycle. So I hope this cycle made a little bit of sense. Okay, so now before we go into glutamine metabolism, what I want to do is I want to talk about this glutamate that we generated right here. What happens to that glutamate? Well, the glutamate, like we said, can be transported into the mitochondria, right? So we have our glutamate that's in the mitochondria, right? And the glutamate can react with glutamate dehydrogenase. Remember that glutamate dehydrogenase is technically a reversible enzyme, but under normal conditions it only runs in this direction, so that's why I'm drawing it along the arrow. And in this reaction, what we're going to do is we're going to use nicotinamide adenylnucleotide or the phosphate version of it, right? And then we're going to get out either NADH or NADPH. This enzyme is unique in the sense that it can actually react with either NAD or NADP, and that's important to understand. And then in the last step, we're going to do a shift-based hydrolysis and clean off ammonia. So that ammonia will then go into the urea cycle. And in the process, we generate this very special product known as alpha-ketoglutarate. And like we mentioned before, that alpha-ketoglutarate can then go into the DHA cycle. And what is the enzyme that consumes it directly? Well, it's the alpha-ketoglutarate dehydrogenase complex. Okay. So now we see what happens to the glutamate. So we have one other amino acid that we need to deal with in terms of transporting amines in the blood, and that amino acid is glutamine. Okay, so one of the things that can happen is when you have glutamate present and amines, there's a reaction that can take place. And we're not going to do the mechanism here, but we'll do that in another video. What can happen is we need to transport amines in the blood, and we have excess amines. What we can do is instead of putting amines into the urea cycle, we can actually ligate them to glutamate. So this is important whenever you have excess amines, or in other words, excess ammonia. Remember, ammonia is toxic to animals. So instead of just having the ability to funnel it into the urea cycle, we can actually ligate it to glutamate. Okay? And actually, why not do this instead of just drawing glue? Let me actually draw out the structure just so you can see what's happening. Okay? So here's going to be our glutamate molecule. Okay? This is our glutamate molecule. And this irreversible reaction, number one, is going to burn an ATP. It's going to burn an ATP, right? And then what it's going to do is it's going to put ammonia in, right? It's going to ligate it to glutamate. And in the process, what we're going to do is we're going to generate glutamine. Right? And so one thing I mentioned earlier is it's not actually the amine on the alpha position that we're transporting. It's actually the amine that we're doing in red here. It's this amine. It's the amine that's tied up in the amide linkage on the R group of glutamine. So this molecule right here is L-glutamine. So we're actually transporting the amine on the amide linkage of the R group. And so that's one of the ways in which we can transport amines in the blood. Or we can say transporting ammonia in the blood is tied up on the R group of glutamine. Okay. And one thing that we can do also when we get glutamine to the liver is we can further react glutamine with a reactant. Glutamate dehydrogenase. Again, we've seen this reaction before. I showed you it before. And it's going to give you alpha-ketoglutarate, and it's going to give you either NADH or it's going to give you NADPH because the enzyme can react with NAD plus or NADP plus. And I might also mention that the enzyme that ligates the ammonia to glutamate, this enzyme has a special name. It's called glutamine synthase. Glutamine synthase. One key is that it is ATP dependent. Okay? It's an ATP dependent reaction. And so what we end up doing is we end up putting the ammonia on glutamate and make glutamine, and that's how we transport the ammonia in the blood. Okay? Because remember, ammonia is toxic at high concentration in the blood. It's toxic. We don't want ammonia just running free. In fact, it's very damaging, especially to brain cells. So the two main ways we get around transporting it are we attach it to pyruvate to make alanine, or we attach it to glutamate to make glutamine. And just keep in mind that we're transporting it at different positions on the amino acid. In alanine, we're transporting it on the alpha carbon. On glutamine, we're transporting it on the amide linkage on the R group of glutamine. So I hope this video gives you a little bit of information on how we transport ammonia in the blood. See you in the next video. Welcome back to the playlist on amino acid metabolism. In the last video, what we did is we looked at the glucose-alanine cycle, and we also looked at generally how ammonia is transported in the blood. We saw that it's done by ligating the ammonia ultimately to pyruvate to make alanine, or to glutamate to make glutamine. And the enzyme that made glutamine was called glutamine synthase. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at the organic mechanism of glutamine synthase. And actually throughout the next few videos, we're going to look at the mechanism of several of these enzymes, including glutaminase, glutamate dehydrogenase, and some of these transaminases. Okay, so let's look at the mechanism of glutamine synthase. Now, this mechanism involves ATP. That's why it's referred to as a synthase. It's ultimately going to be a condensation between glutamate and ammonia. So it's a condensation reaction that requires a nucleoside triphosphate. That's why it's referred to as a synthase. So also keep in mind that this is a magnesium-dependent enzyme, and the magnesium is used to stabilize the incoming ATP molecule. Remember that magnesium has a 2+ charge, phosphates are negatively charged, so that stabilizes that sort of holds the ATP in close proximity, so the glutamate lone pair can do a nucleophilic attack on the gamma phosphate of ATP. So this right here, this is the gamma phosphate, and the first step of the mechanism is going to be nucleophilic attack on the phosphorus atom, and that's going to generate a trigonal bipyramidal intermediate that can be seen in the next picture. So we have this trigonal bipyramidal intermediate that's still stabilized by that magnesium ion, and in this step of the mechanism, what's going to happen is, I can draw my lone pair. In this step of the mechanism, the lone pair is going to cause the collapsing of the trigonal bipyramidal intermediate as the phosphorus oxygen double bond is reformed. And the leaving group in this case is going to be adenosine diphosphate. So this molecule that you see over here, this is our leaving group. This is adenosine diphosphate. And ultimately what you get is you get this intermediate right here. This is an intermediate, and it's called phosphoglutamate. This is called a phosphoglutamate. a phosphoglutamate intermediate, and it's going to quickly be consumed by the last half of the enzymatic mechanism. Okay, now there's a base in the active site, and the base is going to deprotonate ammonia, and that forces the electrons between the proton and the nitrogen to come up here and attack this carbonyl. In other words, the carbonyl that links glutamate and phosphate, and that's going to generate a tetrahedral intermediate that can be seen in the next picture. So we have this tetrahedral intermediate that's very quickly going to collapse, and as the carbonyl bond reforms, it kicks off this phosphate, which as it leaves, it re-extracts the proton from this base. And as you can see in the final picture, that generates glutamine. So this molecule right here, this is glutamine. And why is this reaction important? Well, we saw when we did the urea cycle, we saw that that was one way in which we could get rid of ammonia. We can basically put ammonia into the mitochondria through different mechanisms like glutamate dehydrogenase and glutaminase. But we can ultimately get ammonia into the mitochondria, and then carbonyl phosphate synthase 1 can activate it, and we can ultimately excrete it as urea. But this is another mechanism by which we can basically eliminate the deleterious effects of ammonia on the body. Basically, we can ligate it to glutamate to make glutamine, and this is one method we can drastically reduce the reactivity of ammonia and effectively transport it in the blood. So in other words, glutamine is a way by which we transport ammonia in the blood. The purpose of ligating the ammonia to glutamine is number one, to make the ammonia less reactive, but also we can transport glutamine to the liver, and in the liver, we can effectively remove the ammonia by using glutaminase, and then we can also further remove ammonia by reacting the corresponding glutamate with glutamate dehydrogenase. That, of course, yields alpha-ketoglutarate, and we get ultimately from the conversion of glutamine to alpha-ketoglutarate to ammonia. The ammonia then enters the urea cycle through activation by carbonyl phosphate synthase 1, and the ammonia gets excreted in the form of urea. So that is one of the functions of glutamine. Of course, it has many other functions in the cell as well. Also, what we've seen in this video is we've actually seen another biosynthesis. In a previous video, we saw biosynthesis of arginine. Now we know the biosynthesis of glutamine without actually doing a biosynthetic chapter. I hope this video gave you a little bit of intuition on the mechanism of glutamine synthase. In the next video, we'll do another mechanism. See you soon. Welcome back to the Amino Acid Metabolism playlist. In the last video, we looked at the mechanism of glutamine synthesis, and that was the reaction of going from glutamate to glutamine. Well, that reaction is important for ligating ammonia to glutamate. In other words, we're decreasing the toxicity of ammonia by making it less reactive and tying it up in a covalent bond to glutamate. But sometimes we need to reverse that reaction. Glutamine synthase is irreversible, so we need a completely separate enzyme to reverse that reaction. And the enzyme that we're going to use is an enzyme called glutaminase. So this reaction that we're going to do, this is the mechanism. This will be the mechanism of glutaminase. This is glutaminase. And this particular enzyme is a type of cysteine hydrolase. We have a playlist somewhere in my YouTube channel about serine hydrolases and cysteine hydrolases. This is a type of cysteine hydrolase. The really only other really important type of cysteine hydrolases are going to be your apoptotic enzymes, but this is also very important. The first step of the mechanism is going to be the deprotonated cysteine is going to do a nucleophilic attack on the carbonyl carbon of the R group of glutamine. This is going to, of course, generate a tetrahedral intermediate. And also of note is that we also have a propated cysteine in the active site at rest. Okay, so now at this point we have this tetrahedral intermediate. The tetrahedral intermediate will now collapse, and as the carbonyl bond reforms, ammonia will be kicked off as a leaving group, and as it does, it extracts the proton from the histidine residue, generating a deprotonated histidine, and of course ammonia is your leaving group. And of course the ammonia, when it leaves the active site, will do a proton exchange with solution to generate ammonia, the version of ammonia that we see at physiological pH. But now here's the problem. You now have a thioester gradient between the cysteine residue of the active site, glutaminase, and glutamate, and you somehow have to hydrolyze that. Well, effectively what's going to happen is this histidine shift base is going to deprotonate water, and those electrons between the proton and the effective hydroxide are going to come and attack the carbonyl carbon of the thioester bond. This is going to generate a tetrahedral intermediate. Okay, so now we have this tetrahedral intermediate and a protonated histidine. And now that we have this tetrahedral intermediate, it's going to collapse. And as the carbonyl bond reforms, it's going to kick off the cysteine thiolate as the leaving group. And so now we've regenerated the resting state protonated shift base histidine and the thiolate that is the cysteine residue. And what we get is this, which is glutamate. So this molecule right here is glutamate. And notice that this is glutamate after it's done a proton exchange with solution. So this particular proton that's right here will be there at the end of the mechanism of the enzyme, but when glutamate, or in this case glutamic acid, leaves the active site, it will quickly lose that proton to solution, and that of course will generate this glutamate right here. So what is the critical importance of this enzyme? Well, mostly what this enzyme is a mitochondrial enzyme, and it exists in large concentrations in the hepatocytes of your liver. So when glutamine is present in large amounts, and you need to catabolize glutamine for energy in the form of alpha-ketoglutarate, glutaminase makes a hold of glutamine once it crosses the mitochondrial membrane into the mitochondrial matrix. Glutaminase then hydrolyzes off ammonia, and in the process generates glutamate. as we will see, the glutamate can then be metabolized further into alpha-ketoglutarate and one more ammonia molecule. The ammonia that we produce in this step right here is then going to go into the urea cycle, and it's going to be specifically activated by carboxyl phosphate synthetase 1, and that allows it to be put into the urea cycle and excreted as urea by the nephron. And remember that the glutamate can be metabolized by glutamate dehydrogenase, which gives you alpha-ketoglutarate. The alpha-ketoglutarate can be sent therefore into the TCA cycle for energy. So this is what the purpose of glutamate is. It's basically the catabolism of glutamine back to glutamate, and then ultimately glutamate dehydrogenase can convert it back to alpha-ketoglutarate. In the next video, we're going to look at the mechanism of glutamate dehydrogenase. I hope this video gives you a little bit of intuition on glutaminase. See you in the next video. Welcome back to the playlist on amino acid metabolism. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to very, very briefly discuss the mechanism of glutamate dehydrogenase. And what I want to tell you about this mechanism is it's something referred to as an oxidative deamination. The deamination comes from the fact that we are going to deaminate. In other words, one of the products of this reaction is going to be ammonia. And of course, that ammonia will be shuttled into the urea cycle, where it will be activated by carboxyl phosphate synthetase 1 so that it can ultimately be excreted as urea. The other product we're going to get out of this is going to be alpha-ketoglutarate, which will then go into the TCA cycle. But the reason it's called oxidative is that the initial step in the mechanism involves oxidation using either NAD or NADP. And so the molecule that I draw here, at this point right here, this is the nicotinamide ring of both NAD and NADP. Now, this is the only functional part of the molecule, so it's the only part that I've drawn. This is the component in which the chemistry will occur. The very first part of the mechanism, which is really the only one we're going to go into any detail on, is going to be an initial deprotonation by base in the active site. Oxidize the alpha carbon. And notice the mechanism is basically going to be the analog. It's the analog of the hydroxyl oxidation into a ketone. Notice if you look at the mechanism, it is the analog. Okay, so now we have the shift-based version of glutamate. It's effectively the oxidized version. And the reason I'm not showing you the rest of the mechanism is because it's really, really, really convoluted, and it's not going to be worth your time to look at it. What I will say about it, though, is that you're going to have a shift-based hydrolysis. And if you need help learning how to predict products of shift-based hydrolysis, I have a whole video on predicting the products of shift-based hydrolysis, and you can certainly go look at that on my YouTube channel. But suffice it to say, this group right here that I'm about to circle, this group right here is effectively going to get replaced with a carbonyl. Okay, so the carbonyl that we have is going to be characteristic of alpha-ketoglutarate. So we're going to take the shift-based glutamate and convert it to alpha-ketoglutarate. And like we mentioned in past videos, the alpha-ketoglutarate can go into the tricarboxylic acid cycle or the citric acid cycle, and there it can be used to produce energy. We saw that you can metabolize glutamate down into alpha-ketoglutarate, which can then go and enter the TCA cycle. And like we mentioned, this particular reaction is known as oxidative deamination. The reason is because you're oxidizing glutamate first into its shift-based form, and then you're going to do the deamination. So in the final step, once you do the shift-based hydrolysis, around here, this is where you see the production of ammonia, or as we know, physiological pH, ammonia. And the ammonia will be activated by carboxyl phosphate synthetase 1, and that prepares it for entry into the urea cycle, with which it can be excreted as urea. And of course, alpha-ketoglutarate goes into the TCA cycle. So why would you do this process? Well, this is the catabolic pathway for glutamate. So the main thing to understand here is that glutamate dehydrogenase, this enzyme, is going to metabolize glutamate into alpha-ketoglutarate, and so therefore it degrades it into something that can enter the TCA cycle, and that will be degraded by alpha-ketoglutarate dehydrogenase complex. See you in the next video. Welcome back. What we're going to do in this video is discuss an extremely important topic in biochemistry. That topic is methylation. Methylation is of paramount importance in biochemistry. Really, to get a broad, very actually detailed look at the cell, we have to understand methylation. There are many processes that use S-adenosine methionine in order to methylate. For instance, your DNA is constantly being methylated in order to degrade catecholamines. One of the processes is catalyzed by catechol methyltransferase, and that's going to methylate the catecholamine in order to inactivate it. There's also another enzyme called phenylalanine and methyltransferase, and that's an enzyme that methylates norepinephrine to make epinephrine. So there are a lot of examples, really important examples of methylation reactions that occur in the cell. And in general, for the most part, the methyl group donor is basically this molecule right here. It's S-adenosine methionine. And oftentimes what we usually abbreviate as SAM, or another abbreviation that's also common is ADO-MET. Okay? Ordinarily, I just write SAM because it's a lot easier than writing out ADO-MET, and it's certainly a lot easier than writing out S-adenosine methionine. Now, before we really go into the cycle itself, let's analyze SAM. Okay? So, number one,